Hey there, author revolutionary. Before we dive into today's episode, I have a special announcement. As you may know, I am switching gears for a while and stepping into an exciting new chapter. Starting January 1st, I'll be launching the Manifest Differently podcast. This new podcast will take everything we've talked about here, things like manifestation, living your best life, and achieving big dreams, and expand it for neurodivergent thinkers. If you've ever felt called to embrace manifestation but struggle to make it work for you, this is the podcast for you. Together, we'll explore why manifestation works, why it can be harder for some of us, and the tools, tips, and insights that will help you manifest in a way that will align with how you think and operate. To learn more, head over to manifestdifferently.com or jump right into the first episode on January 1st by visiting manifestdifferently.com/1. I hope you'll join me for this next chapter. Are you ready to manifest differently? Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast, where change is not just embraced, it's celebrated. I'm Carissa Andrews, international best-selling author, indie author coach, and your navigator through the ever-evolving landscape of authorship. Are you ready to harness the power of your mind and the latest innovations in technology for your writing journey? If you're passionate about manifesting your dreams and pioneering new writing frontiers, then you're in the perfect place. Here, we merge the mystical woo of writing with the exciting advancements of the modern world. We dive into the realms of mindset, manifestation, and the transformative magic that occurs when you believe in the impossible. We also venture into the world of futuristic technologies and strategies, preparing you for the next chapter in your author career. Every week, we explore new ways to revolutionize your writing and publishing experience. From AI to breakthrough thinking, this podcast is your gateway to a world where creativity meets innovation. Whether you're penning your first novel or expanding your literary empire, whether you're a devotee of the pen or a digital storyteller, this podcast is where your author revolution gains momentum. So join me in this journey to continue growth and transformation. It's time to redefine what it means to be an author in today's dynamic world. This is the Author Revolution podcast, and your author revolution starts now. Merry Christmas and welcome back to the Author Revolution podcast. Today's episode feels especially fitting for this time of year and for what's to come. I'm joined by the incredible Aneta Kuzma, author of Living the Width of Your Life. Her philosophy isn't just about how long we live, it's about truly living fully, embracing every moment, and finding meaning along the way. Aneta's wisdom feels like a gift, especially as we wrap up this season of the podcast. If you've been feeling the pull to live more intentionally, embrace your joy, and manifest a life that feels expansive and aligned, this episode will speak directly to your heart. Let's take some time today to pause, reflect, and truly embrace how we can live the width of our lives, not just the length. You're going to love this one. So let's dive in. Well, hi, Aneta. I'm so excited to bring you onto the Author Revolution podcast. We were just chatting a second ago about how similar in the way that you teach is to what I teach. And I'm so excited to get information, insights, and learn from you. But before we get started, do you want to tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Carissa, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here with you. So my name is Aneta Kuzma, and I'm the CEO of the Ardelian Kuzma Group. I started my business about 6 years ago, and primarily I work with entrepreneurs and executives, people that have followed all the rules, I say, achieved success to a level that they thought would be fulfilling and satisfying, and then they say, what's missing? And that was me before as well. And so I work with clients in one-on-one coaching capacity. I do a lot of group work for organizations, specifically focused in on overcoming burnout, redefining success, what that means for people and building this balanced, integrated life that they love. I also teach yoga, meditation, and breath work. I find that those three practices were very helpful for me when I was in the corporate world for 25 years. And I find them to be extremely helpful for all of my clients as well. I do retreats all over the world because I love to travel and immerse myself in cultures. And I'm the author of Live the Width of Your Life, 365 days of daily meditations on purpose, passion, and peace, as well as the host of the Live the Width podcast.
I love that. So many good nuggets in there. And we're going to have to talk about so much of it, because it was just when I was digging through your profile and I was looking at all the stuff that you do, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is so cool, because we're going to have some great conversations. And I love that you brought up the conversation about yoga, breathwork, and meditation, because to me,
Yeah.
those have been the same things that I found in my business, in my life and career, that have worked the most. I think breathwork was probably the most recent, and tying it
Yes.
with heart coherence, where it was
Yes.
like, somatic movement and meditation, those have been incorporated into my life for a long time, but the breath work has been key to kind of unlocking, I think, for myself. How did you stumble upon breath work?
Yeah.
Well, all of
So
it.
for me too, I definitely been a practitioner of yoga and then meditation and breath work. I was at actually a Kathy Heller event in LA a few years back. And Sam Skelly, who is the CEO of Pause Breathwork, was one of the speakers, and she facilitated a session. And here I was in the room with probably a few hundred other women with my eyes closed, going through this breathwork session, finding myself completely cracked open and was just crying and having such an emotional release that nothing was like going on as I was going into it. I didn't even anticipate what I was experiencing. And after that session, I was so moved and so impacted personally and so unexpectedly that I immediately went back to my room, contacted her team through, this various social channels. And the next morning had a call and signed up to be a breathwork facilitator, like to go through her 6-month coaching program. And immediately, and it was one of those things where the mind was like, why are you doing this? You don't really need to do this right now. And my heart and my spirit were like, oh yeah, this found you and you absolutely have to bring it to your clients as well.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been so powerful. I mean, it's just one of the most, like you said, the release that comes from it is very similar to, I think, yoga and somatic exercises, when you have energy stored in the body as well, because you can do those things and all of a sudden you're like, what in the heck just happened? I was not expecting that at all. And when you get over to the other side of it, all of a sudden you feel so much better and so much more in control of your emotions, yourself, your journey. It's been very profound for me. So
Yeah.
just to kind of take a step back a little bit, when you were still working in corporate, like what happened there? Like you had I'm assuming an I'm done moment. I want to pivot. I want to be able to do something else and create my own business, which obviously you've been doing for years now. Like what happened there, and how did you come about the journey where you're at?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think I always knew that corporate was probably not the thing that I should be doing with my life. Like I just felt like I think I always knew that. But I also was such a rule follower and I stumbled into this amazing company and it was a headquarter company in town. It was one of the top regional banks in the country. And it allowed me to just build a career and do some interesting things, work with great people while I was raising my family. And when I went to grad school, to get my MBA later in life, 38 through 40. And we had to write a vision paper, like a 20-page life vision paper that was really introspective and reflective. And it was really hard. And I think for the first time in my life, I was asking myself some really big questions on who are you? What do you want to be? What's your legacy? Why are you here on this planet? What are the skills that you have? All of those things that were really hard and challenging and completely inconvenient at the time to be asking myself. My kids were still small and
Sure.
my career was going well. So I think it planted the seed for me, seeds. And then in my 40s, I think just my kids were getting older and I started asking myself those questions again. And I was looking around and just thinking, could I really stay where I was or something similar, a similar company for the next 15 to 20 years? And the answer was no. I just didn't see myself growing and I really didn't want to have any regrets at the end of life. So I hired a coach because I didn't know how to do it on my own. And I had a friend who was an executive coach and I told her when I was ready, because she would always say, you're an entrepreneur, you're going to do something yourself. I just wasn't ready to do it. And when I finally did, I hired her. And it was like once the decision was made, I started putting all these things in place. And 2 years after I hired her, it was time. I had already started taking action. I was building the bridge while I was still working full time for the future that I wanted. And then when I finally felt ready. I was able to leave. And, 2 days later, start working in my business. I gave myself a couple days just to to
Chill
relax
out.
in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it amazing too? Like when once you make that decision though, that's really
Mhm.
that pivotal moment where it's like everything then starts to open up and you start to see the new inspired action coming to you because you've made that new pivotal
Yeah.
moment in your brain. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, many authors, like high achieving professionals that I'm assuming that you work with, feel totally burnt out at this point. Like the
Yeah.
author industry is just, we've kind of had this mentality for a long time of like, hustle your way to the top, write as many books as you
Yeah.
can, as fast as you can. So, what advice do you have for someone who's really overwhelmed and wants to find alignment with those bigger dreams? What would you
Mm.
say?
I can't, it's so interesting you use the word hustle and alignment. So I just spoke about this to a group of entrepreneurs last week. And I said, let's move beyond hustle into flow. And flow is easy and flow feels good and flow is, tied to alignment. And so the first step I would say for everyone is let's regulate your nervous system because if
Yes.
you're burned out,
I love that you just said that. I've been
yeah.
talking about that.
Oh
But
my gosh. Then our
yeah,
nervous system is dysregulated. And if your nervous system is dysregulated, guess what? You're not going to feel good. Your digestion is going to be a mess. You're not going to be sleeping well. You're actually not going to be able to think clearly because you have stress hormones just pumping through your body all day long. So I'd say let's find some practices to regulate, which could be meditation. It could be grounding out in nature. It could be doing some breath work, some yoga, some things that are gentle because we hustle. And if we are in that mentality, we are driving so hard with a lot of very masculine energy. And we need to bring in some of the feminine, which is a little bit more ease. So that would be the first thing I would say. And then once you find yourself regulated, do some of those soul searching exercises and say, what's most important to me? What are my values? What are the things that are really the things that bring me joy? And once you identify them, then take a look at your calendar and say, does my calendar and where I spend my time reflect that? And if it doesn't, how do I start bringing some of those things in? Like your health and wellness, like relationships, like your sleep, like your family time, like your alone time, maybe, or creativity. If you're an author, are you giving yourself enough space to create if those things are really important to you? And then once you do that, then it's really saying, so what is the long-term vision? If this isn't working, then what do I want? What does success look like for me? And sometimes it's taking a step back. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes it's like, I want to work less hours, or I want to be able to make some shifts and crowd some of the things out that aren't working for me. And then just saying, how do I take daily action, imperfect action in that direction every single day? Just focusing in on getting 1% better. Those are some of the things that I would do with someone right away.
Hey there, revolutionaries. I have some thrilling news to share with you. After months of planning, Write Your Reality is officially gearing up for its big Kickstarter launch. If you're ready to transform your author career through quantum manifestation, mindset mastery, and aligning with your highest potential, you're not going to want to miss this. The Write Your Reality pre-launch page is live now, and I'll be announcing the official Kickstarter launch date very soon. This is your chance to join an exclusive community of authors who are ready to manifest their dream careers. And backers will receive access to exclusive rewards like meditations, masterclasses, and even lifetime access to certain courses and memberships that aren't available anywhere else. So head over to authorrevolution.org/Kickstarter to join the waitlist and be the first to know when this Kickstarter door opens. Let's make 2025 the year you step into the author career you've always dreamed of. Go sign up and let's do this thing together.
I love that. It's perfect because that is exactly how I try to describe things to people as well. Because man, when we dysregulate our nervous system, it's like I teach manifestation as well. And so
Mm,
when you're trying to manifest something, because your mind is so out of alignment as well, you're manifesting, you're taking those inspired action steps, but maybe not even fully realizing that you're like the way that you're handling it or the way that you're working on it is misaligned because your nervous
yeah,
system is so dysregulated. And so it's not that you're not manifesting well, it's you're manifesting fine. It's just your manifestations are a little askew because your nervous system isn't regulated and you're not coming from that true place of alignment in
yeah.
yourself. And it's very interesting to me how that all kind of comes together. And so many people don't realize that that can be a crux in bringing in that flow back in their life. And I love that you said the flow and the ease and bringing all of that back into the way that
Yeah.
we handle things, because especially high achievers, I think we have this list and we want things to go a certain way and we're going to check off all the boxes. And then we think that's enough. But there is this level of energy that's kind of coming through, I think, lately, probably seen it in the past 5 years, where there is that level of how do you take a step back and allow what's meant for you to come through based off of what it is you're trying to call in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. I
yeah,
love the word allow too. And Chris, if you think about it, we have done this to ourselves, like through even from the time you start school, these
yeah,
little kids, right, that are just inundated with homework and sitting still and just such a structured of routine and schedule and someone always telling them where to be. And then we hustled them to all their sporting events. I mean, it really seems to have started at a younger age where kids can't even just play or be, bored. I mean,
yeah,
what a
yeah.
gift it is to do that. And then, of course, it's going to continue. And then when the system becomes so used to it that when people are not busy, sometimes that is actually more anxiety inducing than when they are because it feels so unfamiliar.
Right, right. I was just having a conversation with one of my students this morning where we were talking about like that hustle culture and trying to do all the things. When you start getting into the momentum of all of it, it's what kind of takes up then all of your brain space and brain power. And so it's hard to then do the mental bandwidth and mental imagining to bring in something bigger into your life. Like let's say,
Yeah.
if so many people want to bring in, more abundance, more money or whatever into their careers, but they're focused so much on this efforting of like, I have to get all these things done in order to hopefully get attention, hopefully get someone to see me, hopefully do these things. So it's coming from that place of lack. And when we don't have that space for boredom or that space for visualization or the downtime to be thinking about and dreaming up, this is what I'm going to do when it happens. This is how it's going to look. These are the things that I'm calling
Yeah.
in. And like we don't have any of that time. We're just literally just trying to make it work, force it to work. And then it's like it's all going crazy and haywire.
Yes. And the
Yeah.
inspiration and the creativity and the flow and all of that is found in the rest. It's found in the downtime. It's found in the moments where you're lost in thought on a walk or taking a shower or driving in your car. It's those moments. And if we don't have enough of those, we're not going to find what we're looking for.
Oh, I so agree with that. And is that where live the width of your life came from? Like, how did that concept come about? And
Oh.
tell us more about this because it sounds so cool.
Yeah. So it's a quote by Diane Ackerman. I read it when I was still in corporate and hustling and really exhausted and burned out. And she said, to paraphrase, I don't want to get to the end of my life and realize that I just lived the length of it. I want to have lived the width of it. And when I first read it, I didn't know exactly what she meant. Like all I knew is that, oh, I think that sounds like me. Like I think I'm constantly thinking about the length. I thought I'm always thinking about the next thing. I'm always focused on tomorrow. I'm always focused on the next goal. What do I need to get done? What's on my to-do list? How do I get to the weekend? So it's always like very linear forward thinking. And and it's fast, right? When we kind of live life that way, moments, days just pass us up. And then, so the length, I thought, oh, that's expansive. Length is, and width is expansive, right? So how do I create some more expansion in my day? And for me, it meant slowing down. It meant being more mindful and present. It meant savoring things in a way, every little thing, whether it's your cup of tea you're drinking or the food you're eating or the conversation you're in with someone. And it also meant treating every single day like the gift that it is, not just the weekends or the holidays or, big family vacations or whatever. And so I just loved it so much. And I thought, you know what, this really does encompass what I'm doing with my clients, which is helping them build these big, bold, beautiful lives. And when I started the podcast, it's the question I ask everyone because every single one of us has a different answer or response to that question, but we all have a response.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
what you just said was so interesting. It reminds me of like how time passes as a child, or at least how it did for me, like as a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know, some of this Gen Alpha stuff, like their days pass really fast too, but it
Yeah.
was like there was so much expansion in like going outside and doing the things and reading the books. And so it was like the time went so much slower than what it does
Yes.
now. And so I
Yes.
completely understand what you're saying for sure. And as kids,
Yeah.
you're just in it. You're like present moment all day
Yeah.
long.
And you were, I mean, playing outside until mom called us home for dinner, or getting on your bike and just riding around the neighborhood and seeing, knocking on your friends' doors, like who's around, like, or like you said, just reading a book and just sitting outside. And, I don't know, it's just such a beautiful innocence about that. And so, other countries do this well. In Italy, they call it la dolce far niente. It's just the sweetness of doing nothing. And I think that there's some negative connotation, actually, I know there is in the Western world, especially in the United States, around that. It sometimes could be perceived as being lazy. If you're just resting, what? Don't you have a million things to do?
Probably.
Yeah,
Like,
probably.
but I'm actively choosing. See how it is?
E-
I'm actively
e-
choosing not to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. With intentionality. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love the concept of the Groundhog Day life. I think you mentioned it in your books too. So, what are some of the first steps that you recommend for someone who is feeling trapped in their routine and doing all the things? Because I know many authors, myself even included, some days
Yeah.
I get through a day and I'm like, oh my God, I'm back in bed already. Like, what just happened?
Yeah. For me, I like to think about devotion plus discipline. And so, devotion, I mean, is what are the things that your routines or habits or daily activities that you can put in your day that you look forward to? Because the best routines are the ones that you're excited to do. So for me, I have a bookshelf in my room, and I have a stash of books that I love to read from every morning as I'm sipping my first cup of coffee. It's quotes, it's devotionals, it's doing some journaling and some manifestation work. It's like I look forward to that. I don't dread it. I know that it makes me feel so good and it fills me up, and it delays the process of work, right? You're allowing yourself to intentionally start with something that's good for you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Physical movement. Like I know that if I don't get in a walk, even if it's a short one, could be even just around the block if that's all I have time for. But I know I look forward to that. I feel the sunshine that sets my circadian rhythm. I love going outside, walking, getting the fresh air, seeing the changing seasons. Like that feels good. So I would ask everyone to say, what are the things that just bring you joy? What are the things that you know can make you feel so good? Even if it's just a few minutes, it doesn't have to be 2 hours worth of routines. And make sure that you plug those in. And if that means like treating it like a ritual, like lighting a candle, using your favorite mug, putting a playlist on that you like listening to all the time, do that. And don't be selfish with it. Don't give it up. That's what I would tell people. And then I would examine what are the things you're currently doing. If you're jumping out of bed and reaching for your phone right away, and suddenly your heart rate is like racing again, and your adrenaline's pumping, and you start cranking out emails right away, ask yourself, does that feel good? Is that really the way I want to start my day? And the same thing in the evening. Sleep is so important. Many people are not sleeping. I would say take a look at your evening routine. How do you set yourself up for success for a good night's sleep? What are you doing? Are you working till late evenings? Are you on your devices, which are overstimulating? And then throughout the day, I would say, are you giving yourself ample time to rest, to take a break, to maybe just go outside, take a couple deep breaths, just stretch your legs, do whatever feels good. Just look at your days and ask yourself those questions. And I think we know the answers to them. It's just that sometimes we don't spend the time actually reflecting. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And that's why it feels like Groundhog Day, because you do the
Yeah.
exact same thing all the time.
Yeah. So maybe adding spontaneity into the day as well, doing things a little bit
It could
different each
be.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for
Yeah.
me, that would definitely be something because I'm very regimented. I do the morning routine with my
Yeah.
books and my coffee as well. I love setting my day up for that kind of success. When it's nice outside, I actually do the grounding, walking on the grass with my bare feet,
Yes.
watching the
Oh,
sunrise. I
so
love
good.
it. When it's getting cold, like it is in Minnesota right now, I'll do it a little bit, and then I'm usually back in. Not the 6 minutes that's recommended, whatever, a couple minutes.
Yeah.
But it is interesting for me. I think the spontaneity would be something that adds that little spice to the day of like do something that just kind of like I wasn't expecting. That seems fun too. Like if it's just, you know, just doing
Yeah,
something
and
interesting.
I love that idea. And also, Chris, in order to do that, sometimes we need to make sure that our days are not packed from, every single minute. We have to give ourselves some space to allow for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I first started my author career, which I mean, it was back in 2010 when I first started. And then when I really put in my decision to become an indie author and go kind of all in, this is what I'm going to be doing, it was around 2017. Oh man, I was doing exactly what you're talking about. Getting up in the morning, I was like straight to work. I was doing all the things. And
Yeah.
I kept feeling so disconnected the entire day because I wasn't reading like I normally would. I
Yep.
wasn't doing a lot of, I mean, I was still working out, but I was probably doing too much. Like all that stimulation, I was actually
Yeah.
doing like the harder workouts. And so I think
Right.
that was like worse too, because it was like everything
Yes.
was just go, go, go. There was
Yeah.
no calming situation. Like there was no yoga to calm me back down. Like I was like, that's
Yeah.
not good enough. Let's do the high intensity cardio. And now I'm like, no, you know what? I'm gonna do the nice balance of things because it feels better. And it just, but it took time to realize I was doing that to myself. Right? Do you find that a lot of high achievers and a lot of people that you work with are like that, where it's like they don't even realize they put themselves in that
Oh, yeah.
situation? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also I did the same thing as you. I actually decided to run a marathon right after I graduated from right after I got my MBA. I'm like, what am I going to do with all this free time? I'm just going to go train for a marathon. And of course, it was like the worst thing. Like too much cortisol, too much adrenaline. There was no time. And I think the reason we go, go, go is because it is a distraction. It's a
Mhm.
seductive distraction. And we can justify the things because most people would say you're doing all the right stuff. This is what it takes to be successful. But when we actually give ourselves the space and the time to ask ourselves, like, does this actually really benefit me? Or is there something better? When you take the time to do it, we know the answers, but sometimes we don't want to hear what the answers are because it does require us to make a change and we're not always ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It means that we've been operating from a false premise for a while, and then it's kind of like that whole concept of, you know, you just kind of keep going in it because you don't want to let the castle crumble, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh my
read a
goodness.
quote on LinkedIn recently. I think it was something to the effect of, I'm not worried about small progress. It was something about like, not worried about like little progress every day. I'm worried about climbing the ladder that's on the wrong building or climbing the wrong mountain. So it's
Ooh,
not
that's
like,
good.
we could many times be racing and then you get to the top and you're like, oh
I was
no,
supposed to be over there.
I was supposed to be over there and I worked so hard. And now I'm
Yeah.
finally realizing versus like making sure you're on the right place, on the right track and making the small progress that still feels good because it's aligned. It's going back to that word alignment that you used earlier. It's tied to your goals, your values, the things that are most important.
Yeah, that's so key. I love that. Okay, so not to like go back to like this concept of pushing yourself, but I have a question here that I wanted to ask because I'm really curious about it. Because you include exercises that help your readers push them out of their comfort zones. And I think there is an
Mhm.
element of that that is still key for us to be able to push ourselves and to do something that can really push us back into alignment because sometimes we're doing things in a way that just is methodical. We think we're doing all the right things and we're not actually
Yeah.
taking the action that is aligned for us. So can you explain some of that, like some of those exercises or,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when I wrote my book it's a daily because I wanted to write a book that I wanted to read. And one of the
So good.
things I read so much, I mean, many of my clients too are voracious readers. We consume podcasts, we consume so much information constantly, but it's difficult to always take action because we're on to the next thing. And so I wanted to create a book that really supports this notion of daily progress. And so every day there is, every month there's a different theme in my book that's tied to transformation. So the goals you start from the beginning to the end. At the end of the year, you should be different and have grown as a person. And every day there, after each daily entry, there is either a journal prompt, something to reflect on, or there is a challenge, and they're small challenges. And but they're aligned to the theme. And so pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be jumping out of a plane or going bungee jumping or quitting your job. It could be something as simple as, hey, maybe post something really thoughtful and thought-provoking, and if that makes you feel uncomfortable, or record your first video if you're starting your business and you want to promote yourself more. Or maybe it's just buying the person in front of, behind you's cup of coffee because you wanted to bring some more joy and kindness into the world. It doesn't have to be something big, but it's just an intentional challenge that, is aligned to whatever it is that they're doing. So those are some simple ways that you can do it. And I love when people say that they read the book and that they've been doing all the challenges, because they do see the growth then, and they love talking about what it is that they did that day.
That is so good. I could see one of the challenges being take a day off. Take a day off, for crying out
Yeah,
loud.
take your afternoon off, right? Something crazy,
Yeah.
like go to the beach, go to the lake, take a walk, go to a bookstore and just sit there and read, or whatever it is that brings people joy. Those little things that just bring you out of your routine sometimes, that could really spark some new inspiration and creativity, or just rest.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. Okay, for someone who's feeling stuck in their author career, what role does self-care, do you think? Obviously, you've talked about breath work and meditation
Yeah.
and other wellness practices. Do you think that plays in finding the clarity and reigniting their passion? Do you think that's should be put first and foremost before they go through anything else? I'm guessing the answer is yes, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you answer.
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I'm thinking back to my own experience. For me, what I did was, it goes back to that devotion and discipline. I made sure that I stayed very committed to my self-care practices when I was writing, because I do believe that when we are in flow, we are connected to a higher source, to God, to Creator. We are co-creating this beautiful, inspired piece of work. And I do believe that. And so when I was doing all the right things and then gave myself the space to write, I can read and know that I don't even remember it was me writing it. Like, it definitely felt very inspired. And then there were days where I know, because I still stayed very disciplined, my writing schedule, which was every morning, the days that I didn't do it, or if I didn't feel as well, like I was sick, but I still tried to write, you can tell the difference. It just feels different. So it does, right? It's just, it feels more maybe from the head, not so much from the heart. Like, it just feels like it's, you can still do it. We can still write, whether we're inspired or not. But when you have the self-care and you are so aligned and you're in the space of flow, you create with so much more ease and inspiration. And I think it's better work.
I agree with that. Oh my gosh. When I first started writing, I was so committed because it was NaNoWriMo, the first time I was writing my fiction. And I could tell, when I got sick, because for whatever reason in November, or early October, like right now,
Yeah.
I tend to get something. I don't know if it's because of the change of seasons or whatever, but I could tell when I was writing, because I was committed to doing it every day, that when I was sick, it was like everyone was crabby in the books. Like, they were all going at each other. And I was like, what is this? What? I had to throw everything out and start. I'm like, okay, obviously if I'm sick and not feeling the flow, I'm not writing on those days.
No, because, the energy and your frequency, that comes through in the writing, right? And so check in and find out what it is that you want to do, right?
Right. Otherwise, your characters are going to be very angry or very disgruntled the entire time. I was like, what? That was the weirdest experience, but I loved it. And I remember going back, and I was blogging at the time when I first started too. And I was more in flow at that point, because obviously writing and transitioning into writing novels was so new. It was like, oh, this is so fancy and exciting.
Yeah.
The energy was so much different. And I remember, anytime I go back and reread those blogs, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get back into that flow whenever I'm feeling unmotivated or uninspired, and think that your words don't matter, because they do. Like you said, there's a resonance in the way that you word things.
Yes.
You put those things together. It's just fascinating. Yeah, it's so good. I love that. Okay, so your expertise in helping people overcome burnout is highly relevant. We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But do you have any early warning signs that authors should be paying attention to when it comes to burnout, and how can they recognize it so that they can make a shift?
Yeah, it's such a slippery slope. And so I would say that If you find that on a more regular basis, you're waking up and you don't want to get out of bed, or you're waking up and feeling really tired and not motivated to do the things even that bring you joy or that you used to enjoy, like sitting down and writing, you'd probably want to say, let me take a look here and see what's going on. And then also, if you find yourself more irritable, maybe like your emotions are dysregulated, like you're responding in a way that is atypical to very simple things, like your kids leaving a mess around the house, or maybe whatever, accidentally dropping something. There are just certain things that under normal circumstances, when we feel really well rested or we feel more like ourselves or are regulated, they don't really bother us, but suddenly they set you off. That could be a sign. If your relationships start to suffer, because we tend to turn some of that onto then the people that are closest to us, have that conversation with them as well. And then, of course, if you're starting to see that you're getting sick more often because our immune system is compromised, or if you find yourself actually having like some symptoms and you want to go to the doctor and kind of figure out what's happening here, those are probably all signs. Because when we have the burnout, it does impact us physically, mentally, emotionally. You might feel spiritually disconnected because you're not doing the things that you typically do as well. So it really impacts our entire well-being. And I think we discredit some of those symptoms. It's our body's natural way of saying, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And then it gets louder and louder. So I'll say the sooner you can respond to those nudges, it's probably easier to pull yourself back. And the longer you wait, the harder it'll take to come back. I mean, we can, but it's just going to require a little bit longer.
I completely understand that. I think for me, one of the first symptoms for me, if I'm getting close to burnout, is that I don't want to respond to people. It's like there's too much pressure to then have to respond. So it's like as soon as I start feeling that, like I don't want to respond to an email or like a text message or something, I'm like, oh, I need to find some time to get back into like the flow and regulate myself, because that's not typical of me. And so that's like, for me, I've definitely learned that's one of the big ones. The sickness, I think that's probably accurate. I've got a lot going on right now. We're getting ready to go to a big trip on to Vegas for Author Nation, and there's been a lot of moving parts and pushing myself probably further than I typically do. And so I'm like, going with the kids and doing their fun things, and then all of a sudden you come back from a banquet for tennis and you're sick. It's like, oh, dang it.
Oh gosh. You know what, Carissa, you made me think of something too. So that avoider tendency where you don't want to respond to the email. So it's one of the, a saboteur, there's an assessment, the positiveintelligence.com. It's a free assessment. And it's one I like to do with my clients, but you can take it and it'll identify which of the saboteurs typically come out when you're most stressed or when you're burned out. And these are very early coping skills, and it'll tell you your origin, the false narratives we tell ourselves about it, how it impacts us, how it impacts other people. It's really fascinating. But avoider is one of them. Sometimes it becomes overwhelming, and so you just put it off and procrastinate. And so when people tell me that they procrastinate and that's how they operate and they like it or they use it as a justification, I say, that's really like a trauma response, actually. And so it's the inability to move forward until you have enough adrenaline in your body from worrying about not taking action that actually propels you forward. But that surge is not necessary or isn't really healthy.
Right. That's not a healthy response. No, that's not good.
No.
I've heard someone describe it too, almost like it coincides with the fight, flight, or freeze responses. So like avoidance is like the freeze, right?
Yes,
so,
it's the freeze.
Yeah. So interesting. So interesting. Yeah, so that's definitely for me, that's my go-to. I don't typically procrastinate on many things.
Yeah.
But I think there's probably enough adrenaline pushing me to get it done. So it's like, so probably there's that element of I freeze on that stuff because it's not as in my brain, I guess, as high of a priority.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. So sustainable change can be difficult to maintain for authors, especially because when we're doing this thing and we have the momentum, we think this is the way it should be done, and we kind of almost trick ourselves to keep going that way. But how can we encourage authors to keep going when their results aren't immediate? So like when we have this hustle culture of, let's say we have to have, I don't know, a huge backlist or whatever, how can they keep in alignment while they're still trying to, let's say, reach that goal of having a larger backlist of books to support themselves. Do you have anything on that? Like when the
Hmm.
results aren't just like right there.
Mhm.
I think of high achievers in specific where
Yeah.
we go to school and if we always get great grades and do all the things and people are always like, oh my gosh, you're so smart, but then you can't or you don't get that the immediate gratification from your books. Like, how do you keep
Mm.
going and keep yourself motivated without going crazy?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's important for us to understand our motivation for why we do what we do. And obviously, selling a lot of books and other success metrics are really important because that is especially what the outside world tells us is important and why we do the things that we do. But I don't know that that's enough. I think that there have to be some other intrinsic values and motivators that would want us to do something that um, you can't always guarantee that you're going to get the results that you're looking for. And so for me, I loved reading Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act. If you've never read it, it's amazing. And he just talks about as creators, we have to create things for ourselves. Like, what is it that I would love to create that I feel like I have to birth into this world that is so important and so personal and is mine to bring forth? And sometimes that has to be enough. And then, of course, the outside metrics can catch up to that. But I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't have a good answer for that. And I think everybody is individually different. For me, I'm just excited for every single person that purchases my book and reaches out and says, wow, I love this so much that I bought this as a gift for somebody else. And so it's seeing the results, it's seeing people take action, it's all of those things. But I think we have to ask ourselves, if it's not in the numbers, would you still do what you do and why?
Yeah, so good. That is so good. Well, I think there's a level. I was reading this morning The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. Uh, Jen Sincero recommended it highly, and I was in her 8 Weeks to Badass course this past year, and I was like, I finally got
Okay.
around to grabbing it. And it was really fascinating this morning because it was talking in there about how, like, when we have a very specific outcome that we're looking for, that we when we have like our will pressed upon that thing, that's how we bring and magnetize the things to us. So when we are just vague and we're like, oh, we want to be rich someday, we want to have books sell really well, it's almost like it's not specific enough too, because like I'm going to Vegas in the middle of November. That's specific. You know that from this date to that date you're going to be gone and you're leaving on whatever. So it's like in your brain there's a specific time frame. You know that you're doing this specific thing. All of the pieces have to come together. So the universe and yourself, you're taking those inspired action steps to get to that point of having what you need there. It's kind of the same, I think, when we're bringing into the world certain goals. And so if we can get specific and feel good about it and know and trust that we can have it, we can get there. But we kind of mess things up when we think, oh, it can't happen because I'm relying on other people and I'm relying on whatever, kind of forgetting that you're the thing that brings that to you. Like you kind of have to magnetize them to you, and that kind of comes from you being very
Yeah.
specific and aligned. There's that word again, aligned with that goal.
Aligned. Yeah, I find the specific is so important, but I'm a non-specific manifester, like in my human design.
Okay.
And so I think yes, and saying this or something better, like allow for
Yes.
more magic, allow for it to come in better, easier, in a way I can't even possibly imagine myself. And so that's been really helpful for me, especially with all my goals and things that I work on, is being specific, but then also opening it up for it to work out in a way that could be even better than I could have ever imagined for myself.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to be specific about the one thing that's really mattering to you and then leaving the rest of it up to the universe to just bring it however you want. Like when you start
Exactly.
controlling every element of it, that's where things kind of get crazy.
Yeah.
They get a little bit nuts. Yeah. Okay, so in your podcast, Live the Width of Your Life, which I still love, I love that title so much. You explore living life fully and intentionally. So to you, we talked about the width of your life, but how does living intentionally look like for you specifically? Like what kind of practices do you do after your reading in the morning and your devotionals to really expand the width of your life?
Yeah. So I have my life vision. and that I read every single week, which is really specific on every area of my life and what that looks like. And so it's my most big, bold, beautiful, big dream life. And some of the things have come into fruition and some are not here yet. But I still read it and it brings me like such gratitude because it's so beautiful. And part of that vision is being really clear on my values. And so I list, a set of 10 values or so sentences about how I live my life, how I treat others, how I take care of myself, what my relationships are like, all of the things that are most important. And then from that, then I make sure every day that I plan my days accordingly. So I do use a planner that I have next to me. And I use it in the morning to really make sure that I'm focusing in on the things that are most important, not just like a random 20-page to-do list, but things that are most important today. That includes all of the things that I need for myself. They're not just focused on work. And then in the evening, I reflect and say, how did today go? Why? What's my energy feel like? Did I get to do the things I wanted to do? If so, why not? Sometimes we overbook ourselves. And what am I going to move to tomorrow? And then I do a weekly reflection, Friday afternoons. I reflect back on the week and I have the notes because I do it every day. And then I look ahead and say, okay, so what about next week? What are those priorities? Have I set myself up for success with the way I've scheduled my days and my meetings? And then I can go into the weekend just being a bit more spontaneous, more in the moment with my family, more focused. I mean, we never stop thinking about our business, of course, but it's not in a structured way on the weekends. It's much more relaxed. And then that just keeps me aligned. It keeps me focused. But reading the vision is the inspiration. That's the part where you are just constantly looking at it and so excited for all of the things that are yet to unfold. And some of the things are already here. And then it's the daily. It's, planning and reflecting. So that's worked for me. It's like what I do. And I love the discipline of the planner because it takes some of those thoughts that are sometimes in our mind and you put it on paper and suddenly I don't have to remember it up there. I can just reflect on it, look at it, and it's written. And then there's a little bit more space for me to think about other things.
Yeah, it's amazing how those to-do lists will take mental bandwidth if you don't write them down. I have a planner as well. I use the full focus planner myself. I love it.
Wonderful.
It keeps me organized in that flow. But I love the concept of the life goal. Do you teach, number one, that life plan? Mm-hmm. And so is it in the book or is it in your teachings? Like if people work with you, how does that, how do you give that?
I have the template as part of the resources in the book, and we have several entries around that, but it is definitely something that I do in little bite-sized pieces in my coaching, let's focus on the values, and then let's look at what does success look like in every area. And I do a lot of visualization meditations, which really helps tap into people's subconscious mind to think about what it is that they really want. And we look 10 years out and then we work backwards because let me tell you, Carissa, when you add a decade to your life and to your family's life and everyone else that's near you, and we know how quickly a decade can pass, it does something. It puts a little bit of a fire under people to say, wow, I can't really put that off that much longer. And then we work backwards to say, so what do you need to do at 5 years to make sure that you're still on track? And what could you do now, 1 to 3 years, to get to the 5-year vision? And suddenly it becomes more manageable.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it also keeps the mentality in your mind of what it is that you want. So kind of like dumping your to-do list onto your planner, it keeps the thing that you're desiring still at the forefront of your mind so that you can continue to spend the mental energy, which you do want to do, creating the thing.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, I'm gonna have to incorporate that. Definitely getting your book, obviously, because it just sounds amazing. So
I hope you do. And I also, there's a journal that goes with it. So,
I saw that.
The journal is helpful. Okay. So if you want to do the book, over and over again each year, you can have a different journal. But I also kept the Kindle price very, very low, only 99 cents, because sometimes you just want to be able to read it on the go, or if you're traveling, you don't want to bring a big, heavy book. clients were saying, do you have a PDF of it? Can you send it to me? And I'm like, here's the Kindle, 99 cents, super easy. Just download the app. And then you could have it anytime to read or go back and
So
save
good.
any of the ones that feel good. Yeah.
I'm definitely a paper person. I mean, I would probably get the
Yeah.
Kindle as well, but I'm a paper person when it comes to nonfiction, especially
Yes.
things like this. So good because it just, I don't know what it is. It's more my nonfiction than my fiction, unless I've read the fiction book and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I need to have it on my shelf.
Yeah.
So
You'll want to underline and take notes. And that's why I think I also agree for nonfiction paper is so important.
yeah, it's so good. Okay, how do you see the intersection of wellness and creativity? Like, are there ways that mindfulness practices can really help authors tap into that deeper creativity and flow when it comes to the writing side of things too, do you think?
Mm. I do. I mean, I think that so much of what I write is channeled, and it happens when I am not focusing on me, but I'm opening myself up to the inspiration and the creativity and the muse to come from, what I call creator or source and what others, the universe. And so I do think that that's important. And for me, sitting in meditation or right after a breathwork session where everything is just shaken up and you're releasing and you're bringing in all this life force with you with the breath, I just always get inspired and I hear the most amazing downloads. And I was just preparing for a speech last week and in my meditation, and the title was Thriving Beyond Hustle, Building a Business and Life You Love. And I was sitting in my meditation and I'd been thinking, okay, how am I going to start this? Am I going to ask a question? Is there going to be a statement? And in meditation, all of a sudden I heard, I've been worshiping hustle culture since I was 5 years old. And,
Ooh.
and I was like, I grabbed my phone and I like recorded it in the memo so I wouldn't forget. And then I said it to people, I'm like, this thing kind of came in meditation. And everyone said, okay, goosebumps. I definitely would lean in and go, what? Tell me more. And that's how I started. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd been thinking about it and that didn't come to me until I sat still and just was in the moment, in the stillness where I heard that sentence come through.
Wow, that is really good. It made me go, ooh, too, because it's like, oh, dang. I felt that.
Yeah.
Definitely felt that. I'm really curious about your breathwork practices. This wasn't even a question, but it's like when it comes to breathwork, what's your favorite that you use in order to get into the flow state?
Well, it depends what I need, right? So if I'm doing a relaxation breath, I love the Halo Active, which is just in through the nose, out through the mouth. That really gets me super grounded and allows me to just get really like still and it's so nourishing. I love doing the Shining Skull, Kapalabhati breath if I want activation. And I play the song The Journey by Soul Rising, and you're just exhaling through the nose. And you're expressing like through, it's like the belly is just moving up and the air is coming out. So through the nose, and it's just like a passive inhale through the nose, passive out through the nose. And that just gets me going. The song's about 3 minutes and you do that for 3 minutes and then you come out and you're like, let's go. Dizzy, but also like, wow, I feel like I have so much energy. I can do anything right now.
Yeah.
Or the triactive breath, which is, in through the mouth twice, exhale. And that's really activating and keeps you going as well. So it just depends on the day. And I have, of course, as a yoga, meditation, breathwork facilitator, I have dozens and maybe hundreds of playlists, right? Mine and my friends. And so there's always a playlist that is perfect for the breath, for that particular moment, whatever it is that I'm seeking, whether it's joy or inspiration or relaxation or peace or whatever it is. There's something that can go exactly with what you need. And then you match the intention with the breath, with the music, and suddenly it's so transformative.
So do you share that in your book as well? Or are there playlists, or is that for your clients or like in-person things?
Yeah, those are in person. I do have some recorded meditations. And so you can access some things that are recorded. Also, there's a QR code at the beginning of the book and you have access to it. But I do if anyone's listening or interested, I do a free breathwork class from 12 to 12:30 on Thursdays Eastern Standard Time. And you can register online, and you don't even have to turn your camera on, but it's a great way to experience breathwork. And yeah, it's a different theme each week, and everyone's welcome to join.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so where can everybody go to find out more about you, everything that you do? Because obviously you do so much. Where can we send them?
Yeah, the easiest is my website. I think it'll have all my socials. It'll have the ability to sign up and register for any classes, to purchase the book, to learn more about all the services. So AnetaKuzma.com or livethewith.com. They both go to the same website. And then you should be able to navigate around and find all the details. I'm most active also on Instagram and LinkedIn, so people can find me there as well.
That is so awesome. Well, Aneta, thank you so much for being here today, for talking. I could literally talk to you all day long. So
You too,
it's
Carissa.
so much fun. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a perfect conversation to end on. Aneta's philosophy of living the width of your life feels like the reminder we all need, especially as we reflect on this past year and look towards the next chapter. Speaking of next chapters, this episode officially wraps up season 1, as I'd like to call it, of the Author Revolution podcast. That means for the time being, I'm putting the show on hiatus as I focus on other things, right? And I'm so grateful for you. Every listener, every comment, and every download, it's been an incredible journey, and this truly isn't goodbye. It's just me embracing what Aneta talks about, living fully and expanding into who I am. So starting next week, I'll be launching the Manifest Differently podcast. It's a brand new space where I'll continue talking about manifestation and living your best life, but from a broader perspective. As a neurodivergent manifester myself, I felt called to dig deeper into why manifestation works and why it sometimes feels harder for neurodivergent thinkers to fully embrace it. This new podcast will share tools, tips, and interviews that support neurodivergent creatives, dreamers, and thinkers in embracing manifestation and living life on our terms, away from all the societal norms that don't always fit, right? The ones that kind of put us into a box and make us feel like we have to do things in a certain way. There are old energies, there are old paradigms that are shifting and they're falling away, and it's time to start taking a closer look at how we can build in more ease and flow, like Aneta was talking about. So if this resonates with you, head over to manifestdifferently.com to learn more about the Neurodivergent Manifester brand and the new podcast. On January 1st, you can listen to the very first episode by heading over to manifestdifferently.com/1. It's so crazy that the number's going to go back to 1. But I can't wait for you to hear what's coming. It's going to be a fantastic episode. In fact, it's already recorded. Of course it is, because I was super excited to get it out there. So thank you so much for being a part of this journey, for helping me evolve, and for allowing me this space to truly dig into all the things that have been of interest to me as an author and as an author educator. This isn't the end. It really isn't. It's just an expansion. I'm so excited to keep growing, to keep learning and growing and manifesting alongside you. This entire process has been such a joy, and it's cracked me open in ways that I had no idea I needed to be cracked open. This year alone was something that shone a whole bunch of light on limiting beliefs that I had, things that I was trying to overcome, ways of being that I no longer wanted to be operating from. And so this is the next step into that new reality for myself and how I want to show up and be the person that I am explaining to you we can be, right? I don't want to just talk about it. I don't want it to just be philosophy. I want this to be the way we live, the way we be, okay? And the only way I know to really enact that change is I have to be that change myself. I have to step into that role, into that power, and start living my life more fully from that place of true encouragement and joy and gratitude and empowerment. We are the creators of our lives. And when we can step into that role fully and embrace it from our heart, amazing things will happen. So much change in the world can take place when we're coming from a place of empowerment. So, my friends, until we meet again, until another episode comes out, which I don't know when this will be, go forth and live your revolution. Hey there, revolutionary. Before we dive into today's episode, I have something super exciting to share with you. If you've been struggling to find your breakthrough moment and you're ready to take your author career to the next level, I want to invite you to check out the High Vibe Author Membership. It's my new membership packed with transformative courses, powerful meditations and hypnoses, and a supportive community that's here to help you manifest the abundant author life you've always dreamed of. Head over to authorrevolution.org/high vibe to learn more and start your journey to success today.